Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Whether you're listening during your commute, while working out, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you. Every download, every listen, and every subscription means a lot. Up next, the 12 Kyle podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. My name is 12 Kyle from the 12 Kyle podcast, and this is my edition of the Saturday series. I am a 70s baby who was raised in the 80s, but bred by the 90s. I grew up in a place, a real small town. It's called Florence in the state of South Carolina. And I had a tremendous, fun-filled childhood. I have nothing but great memories from my childhood. Unlike, a lot of people, and it's no fault of theirs, but I don't have the, memories of war-torn neighborhoods with drugs and, gang violence and all that stuff. I just had a regular, very tame, fun, happy childhood. And my formative years were, like I said, just nothing but great memories. So I wanted to get on here and talk a little bit about that. My Saturdays were always interesting. I grew up in the house, at least until I was 13, with my parents and my brother, who's younger than me, my brother Damon. And our Saturdays were always dope. Saturdays normally would consist of us waking up somewhere around 6:30, which is always interesting because you couldn't get me up at 6 o'clock on a weekday. But come Saturday, I didn't need a clock. I woke up on my own. But during the school week, you had to physically wake me up because I didn't want to get up. But, Saturday mornings, I'd get up, go in the living room, make a bowl of cereal for me and my brother. And, we're in there with our T-shirts and underoos. Because, who wore pajamas back then? We just had our drawers on. That was it. And you make yourself a little space on the floor and you start watching TV. For us, at least for me, some of the cereals that I had, some of the favorites was like Captain Crunch, which I still eat to this day. I don't like Crunch Berries. They suck. Frosted Flakes, Apple Jacks, Fruit Loops, and, unpopular opinion, I loved Raisin Bran as a kid. A lot of kids didn't. So me and my brother, we had different tastes when it came to cereal. So my mom would buy us our own separate boxes of cereal. So he'd have a box and I'd have a box. So basically I didn't have to worry about him eating my cereal and he didn't have to worry about me eating his. But yeah, we would get down there and we would, sit down and start watching cartoons. And for me, the lineup pretty much would go, Bugs Bunny usually would start it off. This is my favorite cartoon character of all time, Bugs Bunny. Then we watch the Super Friends, then probably the Smurfs. My brother loved the Smurfs. I hated the Smurfs. I didn't see any value in the Smurfs, but that's just me. He also loved He-Man. I never really came around on He-Man, but whatever. Also, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Even though I have my own personal feelings about who I think and what I think about Bill Cosby, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids were, must-see TV for me and my brother back in the day. And then we probably end the morning off with watching like the Flintstones or the Jetsons. And then right around, I guess, 10 or 11 o'clock, you would get Soul Train with Don Cornelius. Soul Train was always dope because, you always saw one of your favorite artists on there. And you always saw that tall, light-skinned guy and that Asian chick with the long hair. They were always featured, I don't know why, on Soul Train back in the day. And then around noon, we would see NWA. No, I'm not talking about the rap group. I'm talking about the National Wrestling Alliance. We used to call it wrestling because, we're in the South. We didn't call it wrestling. It was wrestling. And you had, the likes of Ric Flair, Tony Atlas, and countless other wrestlers and stuff that we would watch. So we watched that. And then after that, we would go outside. And one of the great things about being in Florence and in that era was everything happened outside. Like, you wanted to be outside. You didn't want you didn't want to be in the house for sure. And everything was happening outside. When you heard another child's voice outside, you wanted to be there. So outside was very key for us. Obviously, in those early years, particularly in the 80s, we lived in an apartment complex. We used to call it the projects. It really wasn't the projects, but for the South, it was the projects. So, but anytime you heard someone else's voice outside, you want to go outside and play. So we would go outside. We'd play games like freeze tag, King of the Hill. The girls would play hopscotch. All of the dope girls would jump double dutch. And there's always a cute girl jumping double dutch. So I never got into double dutch, but if there was some cute girls jumping rope, I was usually around to watch. What else? Oh, for us, like, one of my favorites was football. And we had a game within the game of football that we used to call Kill the Man with the Ball. And I know it sounds crazy. Kill the Man with the Ball was like, you would have the ball, and instead of having people on your team, you would literally have to run and try to score against like 10 other people. I mean, which is, looking back on it now, it's virtually impossible, but it was a lot of fun. And it playing that game actually developed my love for the game of football. I ended up playing organized football after that. Played football in high school and all the way through college on scholarship, and I played football at South Carolina State University, a historically black college and university. So my love for football started there, on the playground with my boys playing Kill the Man with the Ball. One other thing about that era was that, when something would happen, something would go down, and then, a couple hours later, everything's cool. Like fights. You would get into a fight. You could literally get into a fight with like your best friend, and like, I don't know, a couple hours later, y'all hanging out, drinking, sodas and running down the street. So I remember getting into a fight with a guy named Kenny. And I hadn't been in a lot of fights in my lifetime, and because I really had no need to. But Kenny we were coming home from school one day. It was a Friday, and Kenny was on the bus, and I was sitting in my seat, and Kenny had a seat to himself, and he wanted to keep that seat to himself, so he kind of stretched out across the seat. Well, my brother and his friend Steven were the last ones to get on the bus, and they needed to sit down, and that was the only seat available. So my brother said, "Hey, Kenny, can you move your feet?" Kenny was like, "No, I'm not moving my feet. You go sit somewhere else." And he was like, "Well, there are no more seats." He was like, "I don't care. You're not sitting here." And so someone said, "Hey, let him sit down." So Kenny starts talking trash. And then, of course, the kids on the bus are like, "Ooh." So I stood up and I said, "Kenny, let him sit down." And he was like, "What you gonna do?" And I was like, "What you gonna do?" And he was like, "We'll see when you get off the bus." And then everybody was like, "Ooh." So at this point, I gotta fight Kenny because, he was talking trash to my brother and his friend Steven. Now, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I didn't want to fight Kenny.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Right? Because Kenny was tough. I was tough, but I did not know if I could get a win against Kenny. But at this point, the crowd was hype. I wasn't going to back down. He definitely wasn't back down because he was still mumbling stuff. And because they were sitting a couple of seats ahead of me, I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I kept hearing kids go, "Ooh." So they were really hyping it up. So anyway, long story short, we get off the bus. They go, Steven and my brother Damon, they walk off. And by this time, I'm one of the last ones to get off the bus. And when I get off the bus, I noticed that there has been a circle made. Now, if you grew up in that era, when people are getting ready to fight, people normally congregate in a circle. So the circle was made. And so I get off the bus, I put my books down, and Kenny's like, "So what you want to do now? What you want to do now?" And at this point, I'm like, yo, I'm about to knock this motherfucker out. Like I'm at this point, I'm pissed because I don't want to fight, but I will. And so he runs up on me, and I didn't expect him to run up on me, but he ran up on me. So I got up on him, scooped him up, slammed him. Wow. Then I started hitting him in the face. Whack, 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 whack. And so I get in like 3 licks. And then I feel somebody pull me by my shirt. It's the bus driver. The bus driver pulls me off. By this time, my dad has come out of our apartment. He's outside. And so the bus driver, she grabs me and Tony, and all the kids are cheering for me. I felt I felt like the hero. And so they put us back on the bus, and the bus driver writes us up for fighting. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't even care at this point. And so my dad, he's calm and everything. And so he didn't say anything until I got in the house, and he was just like, so, did you win? Of course I won, Dad. But, ended up getting suspended off the bus. But, my dad talked to the principal, and I was never suspended. I was back on the bus like the next day, and everything was cool. And what's weird was, like, I had never really I knew Kenny, but I didn't, because we lived in the same projects, but I didn't know him like that. But after that, I really swore up and down like Kenny was going to try to get some kind of revenge on me. I saw Kenny like that following Monday, I think, and he just said, "What's up?" And that was it. And then after that, every day after that, he made it his business to come by and say, "What's up?" to me. And, and after that, we started talking or whatever like that. And we never became friends, but we became better acquaintances, if you will. And, it was just different because, nowadays you get into a fight, somebody want to shoot you, they want to stab you, whatever the case may be. But, that's just how it was. It was just different, in that era. I really don't have any regrets or things that I would do differently about the child. Oh, no, there is one. I remember I had to be like maybe 10 or 11, and my mom wanted me to take piano lessons, right? So I was like, okay, I could take piano lessons, no problem. The only issue was the piano lessons were on a Saturday at 5:00. Now, you tell me what 11-year-old wants to miss prime time Saturday afternoons at 5:00 by sitting inside playing, the piano. So my mom took me to this lady's house, and we played the piano, and I took two piano lessons. I was like, Mom, I don't want to play anymore, because I was missing too much stuff going on in the neighborhood at 5:00 on a Saturday. So I never learned how to play the piano. I have a piano in my house, and I still can't play the piano. But if I had to do it all over again, I would have taken those piano lessons, if for no other reason. When I got to 8th grade, there was this girl that I was trying to kick it to, and she said she loved the song Tender Love by the Force MDs. And I told her I could play it, but I really couldn't, right? So she was like, well, she gave me her phone number. She was like, okay, well, I want to hear you play Tender Love. So what I did was I called my boy on the 3-way. Shout out to 3-way phone calls. And I called him on 3-way, and I had him play it because, it's a very intricate piece to play on the piano. But, it worked out, and she liked me, and, I never had to play it for her again. But, that's my story. Again, thank you for listening. You can check out my podcast, the 12 Kyle podcast, each week. The podcast drops every Thursday and can be found on all platforms where podcasts are free. Again, thanks for listening. My name is 12 Kyle, and this has been my Saturday series.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the 12 Kyle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend who needs the 12 Kyle podcast in their life. Every listen, every download, and every share helps us grow. Thanks for being a part of the 12 Kyle podcast community. We appreciate your support. We will catch you next time. 5,000.